10 o'clock a.m. this morning. I'd also ask as a courtesy to all that you silence your cell phones and mute your connection if you join us on Teams. Each director received notice. I'm sorry. Each director received notice of this committee meeting. The public meeting notice was properly posted as required by law. Directors, for the attendance record, when your name is called, please unmute yourself and let us know that you are here. Nancy or Lisa, will you please call on each committee member to record their attendance?
Chairman Lattimore.
Here.
Director Lloyd. Director, okay. Director Fernandez.
Here.
Director LaChance. Director Luton. Director Wilson.
Here.
Presiding Officer Flores.
Here. Good morning.
Good morning. Director Tallis.
Here.
Director Taylor.
Here.
We also have Director Henderson.
I'm here just to listen.
And Director Savage.
I am also just as an observer.
Is there anyone that I missed?
Nancy, would you go back? I think Directors LaChance and Lutton are
Okay.
maybe just not into Teams.
Director LaChance. Director Luton. Let me reach out to them and see if I can get them online.
Okay. If you do that, thank you very much.
Will do.
We do have a quorum of the committee present. When the other two members can join us, we'll get them into the session. We'll now move to the public comment section of our agenda. At this time, we have no one signed up to speak. Is there anyone out there who did not sign up but wishes to address the committee?
Hey, Ford, mute yourself. We're hearing all your paper shuffling.
Is there anyone out there who did not sign up but wishes to address the committee? There being no one who's made that request, we'll now proceed with the regular agenda. Agenda item 1 is a discussion and possible action on the selection of a firm in response to RFP number 20-03-1159 relating to the development of a Brazos River Authority property master plan and other applicable real property matters. To begin that discussion, I'd like to turn the floor over to David Collinsworth for a brief introduction on our objective today. David.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and welcome to everybody, all of our board members and all of the consulting teams that are here. We really appreciate you coming back and taking your busy time to be a part of this process. And it looks like we have a few people that have tuned in also to listen, so we appreciate everybody's interest in what we're trying to accomplish here. What we are trying to accomplish is very significant, and it's more than just an activity to try to find what properties we need to divest and what those properties are worth. In the big picture, when we talk about a property master plan, we're trying to get a better grasp of the properties that we have, the few properties that we have up and down the Brazos, and then the many properties that we have around our reservoirs, and understanding when the value to our future that those properties hold. And I don't mean value as in monetary what they're worth. As regulations change, as environmental concerns and regulations and rules change, and we continue to have to provide more water We want to better understand the properties around our reservoir, how we can best use those, what it means to own those properties, what are the benefits to those properties. So when we talk about a master plan, we're talking about really understanding the benefit of those properties to the BRA. There may be properties that at the end of this exercise that it's apparent to the board that we no longer need. And obviously, this process would help us figure out the best way to divest of those properties. But it's very well also going to show us that some of the properties that we have around our reservoirs are very meaningful to the BRA's future and fall in line with our mission statement, which is to develop and manage and protect our water resources. So develop, manage, and protect. That's really what our focus is here. Some of the other things that are listed, the GIS discussions that we've had, the management tools, those are things that our staff want to see brought to bear out of this process, because to go in and evaluate all of these properties and understand their meaning to the BRA, the firm that we select is going to have to gather a lot of data on those properties, and we just want all of those in a clearinghouse. So in the future, as we make decisions on properties, we'll have all that information in a manageable tool. So for the committee, that's really what we're looking for when we talk about a property master plan and a strategy moving forward. Any questions about that? Chairman Lattimore, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you very much, David. I wanted to take just a minute. I guess whether it's good or bad, I have some considerable personal history, direct history with this whole issue of property owned by the Brazos River Authority, in that I was very involved with House Bill 3031 and the original move to cause the BRA to divest certain properties. I originally thought that maybe this RFP was a bit far-reaching, but the more I've considered it, the more I've come to think that it is extremely important that we have a plan, we the BRA have a plan for the future of these properties, whether we decide that they're critical to the operations of the authority, or whether at some point in the future we determine that they're not, and that perhaps divestiture is an appropriate move. And one of the reasons that I think it's so important that each property be analyzed is, no matter what we do, whether we retain those properties or whether we divest them, we need to be careful that we protect the future of the Brazos River Authority. And I'll give you a perfect example. We're dealing with one particular piece of property right now that I have knowledge of that was divested and is now being redeveloped with a use that could potentially create long-term pollution problems for one of the lakes in the Brazos River Authority. And I think it's extremely important that whatever we determine we're going to do with a particular piece of property, that we have a plan in place and we know how that's going to affect our primary mission of the authority. We have with us this morning, and I consider it a great privilege to have Presiding Officer Flores. Ma'am, would you like to address the committee? Do you have any comments?
Good morning, everyone. So I just want to echo the sentiments of both David and Jim. As this is a new committee to the BRA, we established it last year, actually, with the purpose to make sure that, as David said, we are doing what we have been called to do on the BRA, which is to develop, manage, and protect the water resources for our residents in Texas, and specifically up and down the basin. So I just want to say that the recommendation that the committee will make today will go to the full board. And it's very important. And I want you to realize that as a committee member, you have a very important role. And then as a board, when we make our decision and vote on who the firm might be, that can, we feel best to give us that plan to move forward in the future. So again, thank all of you for agreeing to be on this committee. Thank you, Jim, for chairing it and your knowledge of the history of the BRA. Thank you, David, for leading this great team that you have. I want to just do a final thank you to the two organizations that presented to us. You have spent a great deal of time and effort putting together your plan for us to evaluate. And so we don't take your proposals lightly. And we have a big decision to make as far as a recommendation to the board. So once again, thank everybody for the work on this committee and all that has been done to move us forward to this point. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cynthia. I want to reemphasize that the results of our meeting today truly are nothing more than a recommendation to the full board of directors, and will report those results to the in the next board meeting. So our decision today, no matter what it is, will be in the form of a recommendation, and then it'll be voted by the full board. Having said all of that, are there questions of any of the three of us? I hear no questions, so I'll open the floor for discussion. We will not hear further presentations from either of the firms that we're considering. However, we have both firms represented. If a committee member has specific questions of those firms, you're welcome to address those. However, they will not make a presentation. So I'll open the floor for discussion. I have a couple of specific questions that I'll start the discussion with. It was, as I was reviewing your proposals, both firms, I'm sorry, neither firm had represented that they had full compliance, as near as I can tell, with the request for insurance coverage. Let me get down to my notes here. Let me ask first of the Siglo group. In your proposal, you mentioned that you will increase your coverage to meet the limits of the Brazos River Authority. I'd like to hear your verbal confirmation of that.
Thank you, Mr. Lattimore. This is Jonathan Ogren from Siglo Group. That is correct. We do have general liability coverage, professional coverage, and workers' comp coverage. I believe our aggregate is $2 million, and BRA's request is a bit more than that, and that is not a problem for us at all to accommodate.
So if you are selected, we have your commitment that you'll be able to provide the insurance coverage that's required?
Absolutely. That can be contingent on a signed contract.
Okay. And the same question of Half and Associates?
Yes, sir. This is Andrew Eichert. Very similar. We can increase our liability coverage and insurance coverage, and we've worked for the BRA in the past, so we haven't had any issue in the past meeting insurance coverage requirements with the Brazos River Authority, and this project will be no different than that.
Thank you very much. One further question. You provided a summary of, each firm provided a summary of your leadership and your team members. I'd like for each of you to confirm that, and I understand that nothing is forever, but confirm for us that the team members that are in your proposal are the same team members that will actually be performing the contract. And let's start with Half and Associates. Is my question clear?
Yes, sorry. This is Andrew Eicher. I think Lenny maybe having some technical difficulties. Yes, sir. The team members that we have put forward in our statement of qualifications, those are all still with HALF, and they will be the ones that execute this project. Several of us have worked with the Brazos River Authority previously, and so we will, the folks that are listed in our organization chart will be the folks that are involved in the successful execution of this project.
Thank you very much. And Siglo?
Our team is made up of senior level or principal level staff from numerous organizations. Many of them are on this call. Carrie Bishop Buffington from Gap Strategies, Rick Howard, senior level staff at SWCA, Tom Hagemeyer, senior level staff at Doucette, Brett Witherby, senior level staff at Valbridge, Mike Fraze, principal at Studio Outside, and Michael Zvets, principal level staff at Pro Consulting, and myself. In addition to that, we'll have numerous other people supporting us in the work here as listed in our RFP. So yes, we will be the folks doing the work for you all. And quite frankly, we're very excited about doing the work.
Thank you very much. Are there other committee members who have questions of the proposers?
Jim, this is, go ahead.
Yes, go ahead.
Jim, this is Ford Taylor. Jonathan, on your proposal on your group that you've put together, one thing that's a little concerning to me is who would the BRA staff have as a point of contact, an individual person that would represent the entire group of 7 firms? Would they have one person to go to, or they're going to have to go to each individual firm? How are y'all proposing the communication line?
That's a great question. Absolutely, you all would not have to go to each individual firm. Myself and Claire Crosby in my office would be leading up that communication and directing it to the appropriate folks. And each time we have communications with you all, making sure we have deadlines and criteria for communicating with you all to make sure that that's a seamless process for you to interact with us. Each of these firms we're used to working with, we're used to integrating with clients, and we realize that that communication is key to having a satisfying process for everybody. And thankfully today, things like Zoom, things like chat, emails, telephone, they all make it a very easy way for us to stay in communication. And it would depend on what type of communication we're having to who exactly would be in that communication. If we're speaking with the board members, I'm going to have these principal level folks talking to you all. If we're talking to GIS staff, it'll be myself, Claire Crosby, Haley Wagner in my office. If we're talking about master planning on a particular piece of property, we'll have more Studio Outside folks involved. If we're talking about a stakeholder process, we'll have folks from Siglo involved, as well as Kara from Gap Strategies and her supporting staff. So depending on the array of needs, we'll have different people, but Siglo Group will make sure that that is an easy, seamless process for BRA.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ford. Other questions? I'd open the floor for discussion amongst the committee members then, if you have no other questions of the proposers.
Well, I might, if I may.
Certainly.
The passage of time since the last meeting, guys, this is to the proposers. I often leave meetings like that and think, gosh, I wish I would have said this, or I wonder why they didn't ask me this, or things that I think about after the fact. And one benefit of having tabled this last time and coming back to it this time is you might have had that happen in your minds, or y'all might have discussed.
Please record your message. When you have finished recording, you may hang up or press 1 for more options.
This is going to be a long voicemail if that happens. I don't know. That's not my phone.
I don't know whose phone it is.
John Henry Luton's.
Oh, it's yours.
Yes.
Sorry about that.
So I guess it's a two-faceted, two-phased question. One, has anything changed, with your company that you want to clarify since then? I mean, it hadn't been that long, but is there anything that's changed? Two, is there anything that you felt like you wanted to say last time and didn't have an opportunity to, or questions you wish you would have been asked? I don't want to open this up to an hour filibuster each, but very specifically, did anybody think of anything that they wish they'd have been asked? And has anything changed with your company? And I guess let's just go in order of let's go half first, since they're listed in the materials first.
Good morning, everyone. Again, this is Lenny Hayes with Half Associates, and that's a great question that you asked there, Mr. Lloyd. From Half Associates in, nothing has changed from the way that we run our operations. Staffing has not changed, nor do we foresee any upcoming changes in the future. When we left the presentation, we quickly gathered, and again, we're really and truly excited about the process, but also to continue that long tenure relationship that we have with BRA. One of the things that we stressed during our presentation, but also afterwards, is that we understand BRA, we understand a lot of your logistics, as well as having worked on many of your properties throughout our 15 years of experience with BRA. And so we want to make sure that we are continuing this long depth and breadth and bench strength of players and participants that Half Associates brings for this project, for this effort. I will again stress again that our team members of Andrew Eichert, again, has a long tenured experience here with BRA. Our overall GIS approach with a customizable database approach that can be used on a day-to-day basis will start to help formulate how we start to evaluate the properties that BRA has, also understanding some of the nuances of protection and preservation of the water, which is a very precious resource for our communities as well as for our state of Texans. And so we want to make sure that we're continuing the effort. This will also start to help drive and put forth boundaries and help us guide us on the properties that we either would like to divest, but also make sure that we're protecting and keeping those properties that are most precious to us. So throughout this process, we want to go and continue to work with BRA, work with the different, the Property Management Association, all the different operators and lake managers that you have here on BRA, but also work with the citizens and stakeholders for this area. Andrew, would you like to add anything else?
No, Lenny, I think you hit it. I don't think we have anything else to add from here. Thank you.
Siglo?
This is Jonathan from Siglo Group. Thank you for that question, Mr. Floyd. We really enjoyed the back and forth. We enjoyed Half's presentation and their expertise that they brought to the table. And I enjoyed seeing our team present and the excitement we had around working with you all. A couple things that we're really interested in is beginning a dialogue with you all, and maybe just even introductions of who the folks are on the phone and what they do, to allow us to begin to understand who you all are, where your professional expertise come from, and what you're expecting out of this process. I think when Mr. Collinsworth spoke earlier, when he went over what this RFP is really about to him, it checked all our boxes. What we've done is we've created a firm that really uses large disparate data sets to make better decisions. We create frameworks to make better decisions. And that's what you all are asking for. So when you're talking about water supply resources, you're talking about water quality, you're talking about Endangered Species Act regulation, how do you bring those different things together? And your project is a perfect project for us to work on. So we're excited about that. Within the presentation, I loved the questions that you gave both HAF and us, and the reflections on the RFP and the qualifications on the RFP. And to our senses, we're meeting those qualifications and we're exceeding those qualifications. We're uniquely qualified within the state of Texas to do this type of work. And we brought together people who are both excited about the process and really good about the process. And I want to open this up to a couple of my team members that I think might want to give some input on this. Anybody like to give some input?
Sure, I'd be happy to toss in a little bit on our process, Jonathan, with the download session, which is one of the pieces that, when you only have so much time in a presentation and you walk away and it's like, gosh, I wish we'd have spoke a little bit more about that. I think that's something that makes us unique. This is Mike with Studio Outside. Is that, and it really struck me when you guys started the meeting today talking about, how important this project is, how pivotal this project is for the Brazos River Authority. Our download process is specifically geared to kind of, as I say, begin with the end in mind. We'll take your mission and look at that in terms of how all of your properties will play a role within the application and the realization of your mission. And that stems and trickles down into a whole variety of different sectors: tourism, natural resources, water quality, programming, facilities. Everything that happens within that master plan process will come from that download session where we'll build metrics that are directly aligned to your vision. In a lot of ways, that process for us is a really good opportunity for us to share our perspective, but also learn how to look at the properties through your eyes, because you guys have a whole set of other aspects that we need to kind of build from, the maintenance issues, the trespassing issues, all those little things that don't necessarily show up on a master plan, but a master plan needs to respond to. That's a critical piece in our process that launches us. We've done at Studio Side, we've done multiple site portfolio project master plans and dealt with all these critical issues that you've talked about. How to divest the property, how to build programs that respond back and support and leverage your mission. And that's the core piece in all of those, is that download session.
And then I would also like Mike S. to address, last time there was a question about the airport, which we really appreciated. And due to the technical way that teams work, the person who asked the question, they didn't pop up on the screen, but it may have been Ms. Flores. Is that correct?
Yes, that was me.
Okay, great. I wanted Mike S. From PROS to just discuss the idea of divest versus invest for a moment. I think Mr. Lattimore, when he touched on the idea that we need to first assess all your properties to understand that, we appreciated that. But just to make sure we're talking about the ideas of divest versus invest, Mike S., could you talk for a moment?
Sure. Thank you, Jonathan. I appreciate the opportunity. I think it's important at a high level to understand that I think what you're I know what you're going to get with our firm is with this team is to really understand to achieve the outcomes through a very data-driven process. Nothing squashes an opinion or affirms an opinion like a number. And so when we start talking about market analysis and we start talking about properties that you may be considering as part of this process after we get through the assessment component, that you may be considering doing something different with. And that could be divesting of it, or it could be potentially developing it. And I think the airport property is a really good example in that it's kind of in a rural area. When we looked at a 30 mile service radius around the airport, it has very little population density, probably about 62,000 folks. It's very rural in nature. We recognize that a lot of the activities that folks that live in that service area are really tied to outdoor recreation, such things as archery and camping. And we also recognize that from a market perspective, that there are several campgrounds that are around Possum Kingdom Lake. Hotels are, kind of range anywhere from a high-end resort to a low-end chains. Restaurants are typically American fare. And so I think that market analysis kind of starts to frame for you a couple of different potential options. One is simply, do we divest of that property? And when we start to consider the divestiture of that property, we have to agree to a set of criteria that you want to meet or achieve in order to make the decision around divesting of that property. If it's something that you're potentially looking to develop and or sell off, there's also a set of criteria that we would need to look at. Sometimes I think we look at properties and we think, well, there's one of two options. One is to divest of it, sell it, and another one is to develop it ourselves. But there's that middle ground that you could consider, which is really doing something like a ground lease. Selling of property does allow you the opportunity to create some cash flow, one-time cash flow, but potential ground leasing it through what we would call an initial request for interest or RFI process might allow you an opportunity to create longer-term financial gain by somebody coming in and saying, you know what, the airport property might be a great location for a more fully blown campground and or marina. Though there are some campgrounds around there, they are somewhat limited in terms of their capacity. So I think we have to use this very data-driven, outcome-driven process that will allow us the opportunity to determine what we do with properties that are kind of in flux, that you're considering some sort of action beyond what it is that you're currently doing right now with that property. And then, looking at the array of options through a market analysis and a data-driven process that makes the most sense for you both in the short term and the long term.
And I apologize. I said Mr. Floyd, not Mr. Lloyd. Mr. Lloyd, it's such a great question, and we could go on for a really long time. Rick Howard just messaged me and also mentioned that on Allens Creek, working with SWCA and BRA, the desire for your staff to be involved in the process, and that's something that we're excited about as well, figuring out where your staff integrates into this process. We could go on longer, but I think we'll wait for another question and we'll be happy to answer that as well. The question I would put back to you all is, what things did you all not hear last time that you were expecting to hear or would like to hear from us as well?
Thank you very much.
Jim, this is Cynthia.
Yes.
I asked this question before, but I also want to go back to it, if you don't mind. On the sample contract per se that was presented to us in the packet under section 3 regarding the term 3.1, I talked about, or my question last time was meeting the deadline of the contract. And what is proposed here as an example is a 1-year contract with up to 4 additional 1 year to get your information back to the BRA. So realistically, how long do you think it will take you to formulate a plan back to the BRA? And we'll start with Siglo.
We would want to work with you all to figure out what that is, and that's not trying to not answer your question, but it's recognizing if you just look at what we've talked about in the last 30 minutes, it's such a large array of issues that we're talking about. And again, we're excited about that, going back to Mr. Collinsworth intro to it. How do you bring this disparate information together? If your example was an initial 1-year contract with renewal over a 5-year period, we can more than beat that. What we would want to start doing is figuring out, are you talking about 1 reservoir? Are you talking about 4 reservoirs? Are you talking about all the properties or particular properties? I saw a little light up there, so if anybody wants to clarify, let me know. And then how much acreage are we talking about? And then how detailed of planning that we're talking about. And so what I could give you are some parameters. We just looked recently at for Katy Prairie Conservancy. We created a database, looked at conservation priorities throughout areas that include Allen's Creek. And that process took us 7 months altogether. Now that doesn't add on many of the elements that you all are requesting here, but that allowed us to look at about 1.5 million acres, maybe a bit more than that. We did the same for the city of San Antonio, where we were looking at a 1 million acre study area, and that took about 9 months. Now, if we were doing a master planning process, Studio Outside would kind of create what that timeline looks like for a particular piece of property. So say we were looking at a park level assessment around Possum Kingdom that was 250, 300, maybe 1,000 acres. Mike, you want to give your thoughts on what a timeline for something like that would look like?
Yeah, I mean, I guess probably the cleanest answer is that typically on these master plan efforts, they take 3 months to 4 or 5 months from the moment you have the data and start to build it. But traditionally, what we like to do and what we have found with all of our clients is that in that window of time, you have yourself multiple milestone dates that you need to meet with groups, or you want to be able to show progress or have investment from other groups into the process. And so we typically will start with your milestones and then wrap our schedule around that, so that key tasks in our planning process will align with those milestones, so that we can make sure that there's not this long waiting period for the master plan process to end. The master plan process will actually be tied to key moments in time for you to move initiatives along as well. And so it's kind of a backwards forward process where we'll start with a schedule, but then we'll also reverse engineer that schedule around your milestones. And there's been many times where we've had to speed our schedule up, and there's been many times where we've maybe stretched it a little bit just because of key times that we've needed to hit for other groups and agencies that we work for.
And then Kara, could you talk a little bit about stakeholder process and timelines associated with that?
Sure. I think I touched on this a little bit in our first meeting, but that stakeholder process to us is really you know, an iterative process. So it would start with conversations with your staff. You guys are you're the folks on the ground. Y'all know best. We have best practices that we can bring to it, but y'all know best who we should start reaching out to. And so we'll really rely on some of your input and some of those early conversations at the very forefront. You know, I think a stakeholder process right now during this time of uncertainty with COVID looks different than it did, say, 6 months ago. And so one of the things we'll want to do is really, from the get-go, start with things where stakeholders can access the project, provide their input from their cell phone, from the comfort of their couch, as well as maybe an in-person meeting. And we'll decide those from those early conversations with y'all.
And so finally, I'll wrap that up just so you feel like you're getting a concrete answer to this, realizing that it'll all be about the discussion and the really detailed understanding of what your needs are. We could have an initial assessment data collection looking at your properties that we start over the initial half year. We have a stakeholder process that can begin while that is happening concurrently. That could go to the end of that year. We can start with conceptual ideas on properties and market analysis within that initial year. And then maybe the next year would be starting to look at detailed understanding, detailed planning for particular tracks that are deemed important for one reason or another, whether it be divesting, whether it be major improvements, whether it be mitigation for particular endangered species. And then concurrently, starting day one, we start identifying that base data that you all need and get folks out on the ground collecting that, because as anybody who has collected data knows, that is a long process. And the sooner we can get that started, the sooner we can integrate that into the framework for making decisions. So with the information we have, that gives you a broad sense of timelines. And of course, as we discuss more with you all where a project would go and your specific needs, we would hone that down into actual deadlines.
Thank you. Half?
Good morning again. This is Lenny Hughes of Half Associates. And again, we will first start off this process with having a scoping meeting with BRA and also with the property management committee. With this process, we'll start to develop this timeline, and then we'll give you a step-by-step set of deliverables, but also dates and timing to meet this one-year time frame. That way we can sequentially look at multi-year options to help fulfill additional needs for BRA. The critical thing, as mentioned before, is really and truly the GIS database collection. This was mentioned at the kickoff meeting that we had when we did the pre-proposal meeting at BRA for this master planning effort. It was, we were wanting to understand, you guys wanted to understand, where the properties are, what type of lease agreements that you have here within your organization, but also looking at ways to help formulate a tool that you can use on a day-to-day basis. So having this database collection will be the first thing we will start to establish for the overall planning effort. From there, we can look at determining which lake properties or which basin properties are a priority for BRA. And then we can start to look at developing more detailed assessments of some of the environmental impacts, the water quality areas, issues, vegetation, habitat. And so this will start to formulate this assessment tool that we would use to help manage the properties that we could have for potentially for divestation. So at this point, I'd like to hand it over to Andrew to go into further some of those different elements.
Yes, thank you, Lenny. There's a lot in this RFQ. It's a lot of different pieces. So as Lenny said, it's just prioritizing what's the priority for BRA, what needs to happen first. We kind of outlined this with our project approach and our presentation, but that data collection piece is a key component at the onset of the project, because that's going to be the baseline for the future aspects of the project. We need that good database of the existing properties, their features, qualities. So I think that's where it's really going to start, but it's really going to be some initial meetings with BRA to really prioritize which areas or which parts of this project are most critical in terms of getting off the ground initially. And I'm going to turn over to Aaron to let him talk a little bit more about the data collection, since, like I said, we feel that's a major baseline piece of this project.
Thank you, Andrew. The database will be extremely important. We can have the database established and start ingesting data within 2 to 4 weeks after the initial scope has been defined, and start looking at what those evaluation criteria are. The way we go about collecting data and monitoring what's going on is once we have the database built, we'll attach that to our prioritization tool, which allows us to put in the evaluation criteria. That's a very dynamic tool. So as data is being loaded, as the different matrices are being addressed, and we're getting that information collected, we can start seeing the information that's coming out. What that allows us to do is pivot if we're not getting the answers we're expecting to get, if we're not getting the prioritizations, if all the information is not driving us to certain endpoints. And so the database will allow us to be flexible. Maybe we need to start looking at finding some other data to help us better understand what the information is that's going in, and ultimately having those data-driven decisions so that we can make good choices about how to manage the BRA property. So the data collection can be ongoing, but the initial start can be as early as 2 to 4 weeks after we have that initial scope of work defined for what is the structure of the database going to be.
This is Kirk Wilson. Ultimately, what you want at the end is that ability for you as an organization, as well as the land and the environment, to kind of communicate with each other. You want to be able to take in all these factors and allow the environment to kind of move and push you where you need to go based on your goals. That is ultimately what you're, I don't say ultimately, but that really is, you're looking for that balance. You want to make sure that you take into consideration your needs, what the environment will allow, how you manage your own property within your guidelines, and bringing that all together. And that database is critical in making that happen. Every component of this process, from the staff to the data that's out there to how we bring it all together, will be very important on you guys, on BRA, moving forward with how you choose to plan and operate your property.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, one last thing I would also like to add is that throughout the process, in order for us to stay on schedule, but also keep everyone on schedule, we would typically hold a bi-weekly coordination meetings. These meetings may last anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes up to an hour. And all this really truly depends on the level of information that is being shared between the organization. Secondly, I would like to help establish a steering committee. The steering committee will help guide the planning effort, but also help manage the desires of BRA and what they would like to achieve for this process. These meetings can be held monthly or quarterly, just to make sure that we're meeting the schedule, but also make sure that we're following for BRA's overall vision. Then lastly, throughout this process, we want to make sure that we're engaging the stakeholders that have direct association with either a lake or the Brazos River corridor. And so we want to make sure that they're engaged, that they're kept informed about the process, but also the outcomes for the overall planning efforts here.
Thank you very much, both of you. I just want to direct the committee on page 15 of the packet under general, that second paragraph. So everybody has a very detailed and comprehensive understanding what was asked of both of these groups. There's no doubt that both of them have very highly qualified staff. But David Collingsworth, if you'll just take a minute, the BRA already uses and already has data analysis and the GIS. Mm-hmm.
Use Esri.
Yep. And so can you talk a little bit about that, David? So that way, we hear the groups talking about using that data analysis, but the BRA already has and uses that, correct?
Yes, ma'am, we do, and I'm gonna turn it right over to Courtney, which is sitting by you, because she would be one of the leading experts in how we do that and what we have in those technologies. So, Courtney, do you want to talk just a little bit about how advanced we are in the GIS world and what we use, and then understanding that I think what these two firms are saying is that they have the capabilities to take our GIS data or build us GIS layers such that it will actually transform. That's not the right word, but we can use them in our system. It will talk to the data that we have. And so, Courtney, expand on that a little bit.
Okay, sure. Yes, we use Esri as well. I think that was mentioned before. That's our GIS software. We have a lot of data collected already for various purposes. I don't know if any of that could be integrated, or if you could if there's a possibility for extracting that data and giving that to whomever is selected to use. Instead of recreating, we would definitely be able to oblige that.
And Courtney, let me jump in here real quick also, and John Dixon, our property manager, is on the call. So John, why don't you also expand a little bit about your vision about this GIS?
Certainly, David. Thank you. My name's John Dixon, the property administrator here at Brazos River Authority. And we have a staff, particularly Van Walker, that heads up our GIS division. And we work on a daily basis together. We have models created, say, around Possum Kingdom when we went through our divestiture that we created that has each property labeled. Can very easily go through different scenarios. What we actually need are bodies to help us import that data and help us devise other ways to utilize this GIS tool that maybe we haven't. Van is very, very good at what he does, and some additional data and analysis. We're well on our way, but we use GIS every day from our pipeline project to looking at rocks on the various reservoirs. So it's a tool that we use every day.
So translated another way for the committee, I think what we're saying is that what both firms are laying on the table is the ability to use the data that we have and create other GIS coverages and layers that allow us to streamline that process and not recreate the wheel as far as creating a GIS tool that is something that we can use. And for those of you that aren't familiar with GIS, it is basically a computer tool that allows you to do an infinite amount of activities and how you present and show data, how you assess information, how you make decisions. It's using pictures. It's very simplistically, it's using pictures to manage your data and get results. And again, it's just a very powerful tool that we invested in years ago. Chairman.
Sorry.
Courtney has a comment here.
I just wanted to mention real quick. I don't know if it's of importance or not, but we participate in or started participating years ago in the Google Imagery program. They had a partnership with the state, and we became a participant of that. And they started charging for making that available to just state entities, and we participate in that. And so we get access to a lot of awesome imagery, high-res imagery that we wouldn't otherwise. And so that is at our, at our fingertips too, if it's needed for this project.
So ultimately, I just want the committee to be aware that we have things in place that both of these firms can build on. So it wouldn't be them establishing it from scratch, going back to the length of time for the contract.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Cynthia. Before we ask the firms to comment, there are a couple of thoughts I've got, and I had notes, and I wanted to ask this question anyway. First of all, when you talk about GIS and the database, are you talking about building on our database, or would it be one that is internal in your own firm? And secondly, when you're finished with this project, is it something that we would own and be able to maintain, or is it something that you would have to maintain for us? And I guess what I'm really asking is, where would the database control reside? Would it be with the BRA so that we could maintain it and use it ourselves, or would it be with your firm? And so I'll ask that question, and Siglo, why don't you answer first, and then we'll go to half.
You all are teasing us now. You're starting to talk about data and GIS. The first thing I want to make clear is that GIS is a mapping tool. So what I like to think I do is I do spatial analysis in GIS. What my parents think I do is I make pretty maps. And so an important thing to remember is we want to make this accessible to you all. If we were to be selected by the end of this, my goal would be that you all, as a committee, board members, high level, not very much time, had access to data at your fingertips that you could use, and it didn't even seem hard to you. I would almost pull up Google Earth right now, put on a couple of your properties, and then talk them through with you all about how you all can look at that data. I've had the fortune to teach GIS at the university level for numerous years, and my goal is always to allow these people that have great ideas to understand how they can use GIS as a framework to understand these big questions that they want to answer, whether it's dealing with affordable housing, immigration policy, environmental issues, water supply issues. And so we see GIS as this amazingly powerful tool that can help make better decisions. And that's why we're excited about your project. Talking about Van and Courtney, we would immediately have a discussion with them to see what their needs are. We would want to really dive down and understand what their day-to-day issues are with using GIS, and then what they need. And we would come back to you and tell you, hey, these guys are doing great work, but they need these resources available to them. One of the things that we've tried to do throughout our process is recognizing how fast geographic information systems are changing, as we try not to use proprietary products. And I'll give you an example of that from our own work, and this is something that we would suggest that you all emulate. We go out in the field with high resolution handheld GPS units. It's actually called a GNSS unit, but we don't use the $5,000 Trimble ones. We use ones that allow us to get a GPS signal, a GNSS signal, and then we use our handheld devices, an iPad and Android, to take in the data, because we realize the user experience on those devices is very fluid. Many people understand it, and it allows us to take the data in the field. So that would be a best practice that we would have, that we would suggest that BRA emulates as well, unless they are already doing it and they're satisfied with their process. So again, that's where that discussion with Van and Courtney becomes critical. Another important thing to remember, and I think the Google imagery comment really highlights this, we are not, half nor Siglo Group are going to be able to collect all the data we need for this. The costs associated with collecting all the data for this it's millions of dollars, but thankfully, state governments, federal governments have already collected all that. So that is out there on the web for us to download. And then we add on to that the data that you all have collected over numerous years. So that's the beginning of our database. That's the beginning of our framework. But then we're going to likely find, maybe we won't, but we're going to likely find issue areas where you all need particular data, either for a specific site or around a particular region. And we may have to go out and get that data, or we may have to work with local governmental entities who may have that data, and we're able to do that. From all this, we create a database. Now, if you all have a database and Courtney and Van are satisfied with how it works, we're going to have a discussion about what they like about their organization and what they don't like about their organization. And if we can build on that, we are happy to do that. If we have a discussion and they decide, hey, the way that we're organizing data makes more sense to them, we're going to create that database. And then at the end of the day, and I think this is very critical to Mr. Lattimore's question, is we're going to hand that over to you all. And we're going to first, depending on if Van and Courtney need it, we're going to give it to them on training wheels. We're going to interact with them no matter what. And depending on how much training they need on that, we'll interact with them more. But if we look forward at the end of this process, you are going to have this framework. You're going to have people in-house, unless you decide not to, that can use that data to help you all make decisions. We are happy to be a part of the process as long as you all want us to, and we're looking forward to a long relationship with you all. But we're going to also make sure that you feel independent and you can keep on moving forward. So you have a deliverable at the end of this process that is yours and you can grow with. And again, I just want to state two more things. One is we're trying to stay away from proprietary pieces of information, pieces of software, because the technologies are moving so fast. The final thing I'll say is we love graphic representation of geographic data. And that's a place, you all have some great maps on your website. And that's another place where we think through this process, we can help you all think about how do you represent your properties, your reservoirs, your river basin, your mission of developing, managing, and protecting the water resources of the Brazos River in graphic format. And we look forward to helping you all do that as well, and also thinking about how your staff can take that on and do that after we're done with this process.
Thank you very much. Half.
Good afternoon. This is Russell Matashak with HAF. I'm going to kind of start this answer and then, transfer it over to Aaron Atkinson. But, there's kind of been three topics that were discussed, in this latest round of question. How's the existing data going to get used? How's it going to get housed? And I'm also going to touch back on a question that was asked, in the first round of interviews of what is the expectation of BRA staff? Because I think it kind of lends to this whole answer. When we, for those on the line that aren't familiar with GIS at a very basic level, the data that Siglo talked about that is out there, that is available by, state and federal agencies, at the heart of it, that's all information that somebody else has developed that's been compiled into a data unit. We wouldn't treat, BRA's existing information any different. It's just another type of data source that somebody else that in this case is most familiar with the project. So, absolutely we would use that. So I think the question from Mr. Lattimore was, would it be something that we would build upon, or is it something that we would create our own separately and use in tandem? I think the idea is we want to see what that data is first. A great example would be the property boundaries. If y'all have property boundaries and within that property boundary geographic data, there is ownership information that
is, most recent, more verified, through BRA's internal processes, obviously that's going to be better than something that we might rely on from a county database. And then I think we would kind of, through that process, figure out exactly, it's been said over and over, as we figure out what, BRA wants, we will take the data that we collect, the data that BRA gives us, and we're going to build a database that's going to be conducive to the tools we might be developing, the master plan, map. Yes, GIS people create pretty maps, but yeah, we work with data. So the GIS database is integral to supporting the pretty maps we make, but also preparing the handy tools that we're going to develop. So I think Mr. Lattimore also asked, how's this information going to be stored and housed? I think, Aaron, that's kind of where I want to turn it over to you to kind of reintroduce, what we discussed at the, first interview, how we house that data, how we can make it available to BRA, and then, how in the past we make these types of tools available, how we train, and how we support, beyond, the initial contract.
Thank you, Russell. I'd like to first start off by, stating that HAF is an Esri shop. We use the Esri GIS platform. We've actually been a business partner with Esri for almost 15 years now. So we are very accustomed to working within all the platform that Esri provides, both the desktop and the server. For these types of projects, where we're working with your existing data and we're developing data for you, at the end of the day, BRA owns all the data. So at the end of the project, once it's been completed, all the data will be within BRA's hands, and it will be developed using the standard Esri approach for geodatabase design, so that all your existing tools will work with that data. Courtney mentioned using the Google imagery. We like to use Google as well. We'll bring that in quite often. We also subscribe to Nearmap, which is a similar service, more for the urbanized areas, but we can bring in that high resolution 3-inch imagery as well to help us see the different features that are on the ground. So we'll be leveraging all the best available flights. Even when we get up so far, up into the Lubbock area, we know people that have flown high resolution imagery flights, so we might be able to bring in that. So we're actually doing the QC right now for Lake Allen Henry. So we're looking at 3-inch imagery on that. So we have some contacts to help us bring in some other high resolution stuff. So because we're using the Esri platform, we want to make sure that we're interfacing and leveraging everything that BRA already has invested in. So as far as where the data lives, we'll work with BRA and maybe Courtney to understand where should an enterprise geodatabase live. Should it be hosted on the BRA server? Should it be hosted on the HAF server? Or are there going to be parts that are hosted by HAF and parts that are hosted by BRA? We can work out the best fit so that we're collecting the data the right way. No matter what, through the whole project, we work through these in a web-enabled setting. So we want the data to be live, where people can add to it from the field. They can see it at any time. We can put that up through dashboards. We can show some simple maps so that you can see the progress of the project. But where that lives really doesn't matter. That's transparent to the end user. But we will work internally on, through the back end, what is the best fit for housing that information. But ultimately, it will all be delivered to the BRA. Siglo mentioned, the GPS support. We do the same thing. We have multiple units. It kind of depends on the accuracy that's needed for the project. But we tie that in directly to the Esri mobile app, so that as we're collecting data in the field, it is going into that one GIS database, so everything's being collected, and the stakeholders that are back in the office can see the information as it's coming in. With regards to the imagery and being able to collect up as much data as we can, our geospatial group has developed some machine learning technology to do feature extractions. So if we're wanting to take an image over one of the lakes and identify where all the docks are, through their machine learning techniques, they can extract those features. It makes it very cost affordable, much better than it used to be for hand digitizing. So we have a lot of automation tools that will work like that. Russell mentioned, developing very specific tools for this project to meet the needs. If we do develop specific tools, they will be built on the standard Esri backend using their application programming interfaces, their APIs. That way it works with all the desktop and server software that BRA has. BRA will own those tools. We've done this several times. For TRWD, the Tarrant Regional Water District up in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, we've done several custom tools. We design them to work within their servers, within their environment, and we deliver it to them. So there's not a maintenance or an ongoing fee associated with the very specific tools that are developed for specific projects. We've talked about a lot of different things, the data collection, how you see it, where it's going to be stored. But at the end of the day, the most important part is providing the training so that you understand how it works, so that when we deliver it, there are no speed bumps. We've been working hand in hand with the BRA GIS folks so that they understand why the tools were built the way they were or why the data was collected the way it was. We're always building updated dictionaries so that we can go back through and see what the specific needs were. Why did we collect certain data? But we will do the training at the end. We'll make sure that everybody understands how to use the tools. Like I said, they're all web-based tools, so they're very simple. The training needs are not extravagant. Most of our trainings that we do are typically anywhere from a half a day to a day when we do the handoff. So I think because we are an Esri shop, we'll align very well with BRA and being able to come up with the best solution.
Thank you very much. Are there other questions from the committee members or the officers from the BRA?
This is David Savage. I guess, Jonathan, does Siglo also use the Esri platform?
We absolutely use the Esri platform.
Other questions? I don't have any, I don't know that I have any other questions. I might start off our discussions amongst the committee members. First of all, I want to say that the two firms that we have proposing, I think, are both have both offered up a very good response to our request. This is not an easy decision because in all aspects they are generally both equally qualified. I think on the one hand you have Half Associates that is very technically based and certainly competent. In the Siglo group, you have an organization that is creative and seems to be willing to dig into all the corners. I guess the point of my discussion would be in this particular instance, I think it's important to have a firm that will look in every corner and has no preconceived notions about the past history of the BRA or where things might have been done in the past. But I'd open the floor to other committee members who perhaps have other items of discussion. Anybody besides me have any thoughts?
Jim?
Yes, sir.
John Henry.
Yes, sir.
You know, on one hand, I think, well, we might be better off dancing with the devil we know, but maybe that would be a limiting factor on the end product we get. Maybe we need a new fresh look. So there's two horns on this bull. Basically what you said.
I agree, John Henry. I think sometimes you can know too much about a subject that you're going to try to study. Other thoughts from the committee?
I have a question for David or whoever on staff. It's a staff question, but I direct it to David. Communication reasons. We feel good about it. Is there any preference or indication that that communication would be better or easier with one or the other?
No, I don't think we have a preference about communication. I think we're comfortable that communication from either firm would be fine.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
Wayne,
sir.
This is Wayne Wilson.
Yes, sir.
I agree with your comments and John Henry's. I looked at this sheet and the information that they sent out for the evaluation, et cetera. And it's real close. It's both firms are very qualified. But my preference, I assume at this time, my preference is still for Siglo Group.
Would you like to make a motion to that effect, Mr. Wilson?
Do you want me to make a motion to that effect? I will. I will make a motion to recommend that BRA enters into the contract with Siglo Group.
Mr. Chairman, I have an additional question, maybe a point of order.
Yes, sir.
Are we having this? I feel like we're trying to decide which girl to go out on a date with, and they're both at the front door. I don't remember this being normal procedure to have. I mean, not that we're trying to hide anything, but do we really want both parties on the call as we continue the debate? Because our decision or recommendation to the board, although that will be public, I'm just curious about this process.
Director Tallis, as far as these video meetings go or having it in person, we're required to continue to do this in a public forum. So yes, this is the path that we have to proceed forward on.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
We'll get down to the formal motion in a moment, but okay, Director Wilson.
I'm sorry, Chairman Lattimore, this is Mike Fernandez. I just want to put in a point here. I agree that both of these firms are very, very qualified and very experienced. Just to put my 2 cents in, you made the comment that half was more technical and Siglo more creative, which I agree with. My leaning was more towards half. I feel like the experience that they have with larger projects and larger organizations, and this is just my interpretation based off of the materials provided, seems to be more comprehensive than what Siglo has accomplished in the past. I feel like half provides a wider array of services under one roof, and with those services, individuals who have professional licenses and certifications that would provide a great deal of benefit to the BRA. My preference is for half and associates, and I just wanted to make those points and get my opinion on the record.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, this is Ford Taylor. I might make a comment. I think what Mike said is exactly right. Both firms have made a really good presentation. My recommendation will be half because of previous experience successfully working with the BRA and doing larger projects. I'm more comfortable with them because they're basically all of their work is in-house with their employees under one roof. I'm a little concerned with Siglo that it's a consortium of 7 different firms that was put together in response to the BRA request for proposal in the current economic times and the uncertainty of the business climate in the future. I would be more comfortable with a single source firm with a track record than I would be with a consortium, for lack of a better description. That's just my opinion.
Thank you very much. Others wish to comment?
This is Director Tallis. I just want to echo, and I agree with Ford and Mike on those comments.
Okay. Just a point of clarification. It's my understanding that the presiding officer, Flores, and Director Tallis and Director Taylor, as officers of Brazos River Authority, are welcome to participate in the meeting, but they are ex officio and as such don't vote as part of the committee. Obviously, when our recommendation gets to the full board, they will have the opportunity to vote.
Actually, Director Lattimore, I believe the officers are voting members of committee.
Okay. And who's this?
That was Laurel Lee. I'm sorry, sir.
Okay. All right. Good. Thank you for that clarification. So they are voting members of the committee, and I stand corrected. Thank you very much, Laurel Lee. Are there other comments?
Jim, this is Cynthia. You have a motion on the floor, so I think we need to move forward to that.
Yep, we do. We have a motion from Director Wilson. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
We've got a motion and a second. Is there any discussion beyond what we've already had? David, would you like to read the motion?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Be it resolved that the Property Management Committee of the Brazos River Authority hereby authorizes the General Manager CEO along with staff to negotiate a proposed professional service agreement for the purposes of assisting in the development of a comprehensive property master plan and coordinate on other applicable real property matters with Siglo. Be it further resolved that the Property Management Committee hereby instructs the General Manager and staff to update and seek approval from the Board of Directors of the Brazos River Authority, the professional service agreement and fee negotiated with the Siglo Group.
You've heard the reading of the resolution. Is there a motion to adopt? I think we already have the motion from Director Wilson and a second by Presiding Officer Flores.
Correct.
Please poll the committee.
Chairman Lattimore.
Yes.
Director Lloyd.
No.
Director Fernandez.
No.
Director LaChance.
No.
Director Luton.
No.
Director Wilson.
Yes.
Director Flores.
Yes.
Director Tallis.
No.
Director Taylor.
No.
3 yes and 6 no.
There being 3 ayes and 6 nays, the motion fails. Do I hear another motion to consider? Mr. Luton,
I move that we enter into, or recommend to the board that we go forward with Half and Associates.
I'll second that. This is Director Tallis.
motion's been made by Director Luton and seconded by Director Tallis. David, would you read the motion?
Yes, sir. Be it resolved that the Property Management Committee of the Brazos River Authority hereby authorizes the General Manager / CEO, along with staff, to negotiate a proposed professional service agreement for the purposes of assisting in the development of a comprehensive property master plan and coordinate on all other applicable real property matters with Half and Associates. Be it further resolved that the Property Management Committee hereby instructs the General Manager and staff to update and seek approval from the Board of Directors of the Brazos River Authority, the professional services agreement, and fee negotiated with Half and Associates.
You've heard a reading of resolution and the motions and a second to adopt. Please poll the committee.
Chairman Lattimore,
No.
Director Lloyd,
Yes.
Director Fernandez,
Yes.
Director LaChance,
Yes.
Director Luton,
Yes.
Director Wilson,
No.
Director Flores,
No.
Director Tallis,
Yes.
Director Taylor.
Yes.
6 yes, 3 no.
There being 6 ayes and 3 nays, the motion passes. The committee will brief the board at the October meeting on our discussions and actions from this meeting. Now all we need is a call for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Who is that?
Second by Taylor.
Who made the motion to adjourn?
Tallis.
Tallis. A second by Director Taylor. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? We'll adjourn the meeting at 11:28. Thanks to everyone for participating, and we'll see you at the end of October.
Take care, guys.
Bye, everybody. Have a good week.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.